Okay. Welcome to the Awakend Pilgrim. Hope to find you in good health, that you've got a good day, and this is a moment of peace that we can share together. I'm Mark, and if you're new here, this is a report about us building an eco village in the Mayan Jungle. And I moved out of BC, Vancouver, BC in 2021, inspired to start a community. And I found that this is the best place to do it. So that's why we're doing it here. And it's based on natural law, and I'm going to get a little bit into that today. What is natural law? What is this thing Mark keeps on talking about that's annoying you? So, and I wanted to share with you today a special synchronicity. And I think it's important to share them because that way we can actually understand what are synchronicities and, identify them. And if you've never had a synchronicity, then it's sometimes something that you can overlook because it's very subtle, but it's profound when you do figure it out. So I'm going to share one of those, and I'm going to also share a little bit on the natural law. As far as the progress and the project is going, we're still in the process of moving to Base Camp 2, and we're going to go there today and work there today. But besides that, we had a success in going to town, and one of our members went to town for a week and came back. Everything's solved there. So, and we've been starting to share our funding founder invitation. So that's something that's private, but we've been working on that. And so, all right, let me jump into some of the things I've also been busy with is going through the material from the scholarship program that I'm in with Redesign School, or it's the Design School for Regenerative Earth, and with Joe Brewer. And it's been an amazing experience, and I'm going to share a little bit out of one of the conferences they had, just a little piece there that's related to natural law. But besides that, we've also been working a lot on trying to learn about the activities here, the bioregional activities, what are the projects that are going on, and what are the activities. One of the things that have just occurred, one of the events that have just taken place, is a extension of protection for the Mayan bees, because they are under threat with all the pesticides and the chopping the wood and so on. And they also just don't have a lot of flowers. It's a beautiful jungle and it's very green, but there's just not enough flowers. So that's one of the things we need to do is grow flowers. It's a beautiful, job. But what do you do for a living? I plant flowers all over the jungle. That's pretty much the majority of the work we have to do, actually. Anyway, so this is a great development for, the value of the Mayan bees. And like I said, it's gold. Once the world has come to understand the value of what is the Mayan bee pollinia, in other words, it's pollen, and what it really holds, it's going to be more valuable than gold. So this is something people don't know yet, but keep an eye on this because it's going to be a great investment. Anybody that's getting involved with helping develop the hives of the Mayan bees, you guys are going to be multimillionaires because there's just not a lot of interest in it, but it holds so much value. And we are in the process of building our own hive or sanctuary, a bee sanctuary, apiary. And if you want to, the link is at the bottom, and we are looking for donations. Or if you want to get involved, we can work together, and you could actually be involved in the actual process of that. So reach out. Contacts at the bottom on the website, and I appreciate that. So let me get into the synchronicity because that's the part that's really juicy today, and it's going to take a little bit of explaining, but I'm going to try and do it in a very minimal approach. Basically, I have to go back about a month ago and just point out. So a month ago, I got involved with a group, and it's totally unrelated to what I'll tell you just now. But basically, it's just a group that we are interested in getting out of the system. We are involved in natural law and learning about, the system and sovereignty and that kind of thing. So I got involved with that. And in that group, I ended up meeting an individual, let's just say individual A, and individual A has their own business that they're running and their own kind of marketing that they do. And eventually, somehow, I got involved with that now. And so, in that group, there was an individual B. And so this has now progressed over the last, let's say, couple of weeks, like 3 weeks, to this point now where I've met individual B. I'm going to leave it up to there. I'm just going to leave it there for a moment. Now, to go back about a month and a half ago, I got involved with another group. You know about, or I've spoken about ecohubs.community, where we're busy designing basically a protocol to help communities develop in making sure that they are run with success, right? So, or at least prevent them from failing so much. So that is the goal in that group. And in that group, we were talking about associations. We were talking about different communities to get involved with. And in that group, that was mentioned a certain association, a certain organization that is helping organize all the eco villages and get it. It's very similar to another group called JANE, which is Global Eco Village Network, and you can go to JANE and look for communities that you can apply to. So this is a sister of that, let's say. And I started looking on that website, and I was obviously looking at the environment, where the region where they have projects. Yeah, and I saw, there's like 4 projects, and only one of them was legit. All the others, and this is something people, it takes a lot of work to start an eco village. A lot of eco villages start, and very few continue after a year or two. It's just the fact of the matter. And so, there might be 5 or 10 villages you see, but actually only one of them are actually functioning, or it's, maybe 1 or 2 people are there, and that's it. That's very common in this kind of business. So anyway, I noticed that there was this one, community that seems to be actually, thriving, and they're doing well. I'll just leave it at that. So these are the 2 different aspects. So one is got to do with me involved with volunteering at ecohubs.community, and the other one has to do with just some random connection that I've made through other people. So anyway, when the time came for me to meet, I'm going to say person B, we couldn't figure out a time, and eventually they sent me a scheduler, like one of those do the calendar thing. And so I ended up choosing a time and so on, and I get a confirmation email, and I notice on that email this the domain. And I'm like, I saw that this morning, right? Like I saw that this morning, where did I see that? And I realized that individual that I connected with is actually running the same community that I noticed when I was looking at the associated website that is organizing all the eco villages. That happened literally like 2 hours before, right? So I'm basically on the computer, and I recognize this domain 2 hours before that. I was looking on the computer to see the villages that are in the area, and I found that. So you tell me, what is the probability of that working out like that? And to me, that's a synchronous event, because it's not probable. It's not even, it's possible, of course, but the probability is really minimal that on the same day, hours, like just a few hours from the one instance and the other instance, that there's a correlation that comes to my attention, right? It's obviously I could have met these individuals at different times, but it happened right now. And that I always look at it, that timing is always, that's what we talk about, Kairos. It's a type of time that lives beyond our mechanical time that we are using today, the Roman system time, the fake time. So when it comes down to it, and yesterday was a day of nothing in particular special when it comes to the Mayan calendar, but still we are in a significant development of movements here with the creative. Oh, I gotta watch out. I feel like there's something trying to eat me. So yeah, so when it comes down to it, this isn't something I was expecting at all to work out, but yesterday was a day of following your intuition, like it's one of those tools that we need as we manifest things, is you got to go with your gut, because others are not going to understand that. They're not going to understand what you're doing. They just, they haven't been through the same experiences. They don't wake up and experience the same things you experience. So don't expect them to understand. It's just not in their vocabulary. But when it comes down to it, follow your intuition, because you have a record of experiences that, and if you know you've been true to yourself, you can follow your intuition. If you haven't been true to yourself, I've got a warning for you. Your intuition is off, okay? So that is the problem with that. And so it only works out if you've actually been true to yourself. So follow your intuition, and that's what I did yesterday, and that's how I found that synchronicity. Today is about focus. Let's basically get on track when it comes down to, what is that? It's a tabanon. It's one of those little horse flies. I'll deal with him in a minute. So basically, that was the amazing synchronistic event that took place yesterday. Now, to move on to this morning, I would say it's almost another synchronistic event. So every morning I'm waking up and I'm getting through the materials from the design school for regenerating Earth. And this morning I wake up and I start, watching this conference, and it just blew my mind, because I talk about natural law as a basis of way of living, as a way of understanding reality, and the basis of protocol that's aligned with God's will, right? That's what my point is. Natural law is an extension of God's will, because nature comes from God. Like, this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the architect, God, or our creator of all, putting it together, right? It didn't just happen by chance. That's what science is. Or they say the probability of just certain elements coming together, and then poof, you got life. This is ridiculous, right? Like, to think that life came just out of some kind of magic, or some kind of magic would actually make more sense, but it's just some kind of haphazard coincidence. It's just a coincidence that the elements come together and they build the right amino acids, and poof, you got life. I mean, are you kidding me? I used to be an atheist for about a year, because I was angry at the whole Christian movement, and so I just became an atheist out of just being done with trying to. Oh, it looks like I got a mosquito. Just trying to try and implement that stuff in my life, which I was like, it's all contradictory, right? Like, I see what's going in the Bible, and then I see what people are doing in the church, and it's like nothing makes sense to me. So I became an atheist, and after being an atheist for about a year, I ended up realizing that atheism is a religion in itself, and it's just as crazy. And the reality is that atheists are kind of crazy anyway, and I get it. It's like, I think you're crazy, but I get why you're there. I was there as well. So, but the reason why I say that is, first of all, Darwin wasn't even an atheist, and he comes up with creationism, and a lot of atheists actually lean onto Darwin's work, of course. But ultimately it comes back to this idea that there is a natural law and order that was in place before we existed, and will be after we all gone, and that is the law that we should be following, because it's the one that taps into the magic of life and all the different, we talk about the law of reciprocity, right? The law of concentration. There's about 27 of them, and they are mystical in themselves, but they occur, like I mentioned with the synchronicity. So it is the basis of a way to survive and to thrive, really. And so the sooner we get back to that as a humanity, not as a peoples, because that is just fictitious, but as a humanity, as people that have woken up and awoken to the fact that they are spiritually electro beings, right? Like, we are interacting in this environment on an electromagnetic level, not a mechanical level. So once we come to terms, and we've actually, and there will be a point where people will wake up and realize, they've lost their humanity, and that it's more important to be human than a person and your persona, to act yourself, right? Like, it doesn't really matter how I look or what I say. That doesn't matter, right? What matters is that you are living the experience you're meant to live, because that is the reason why you came here, right? It's not because you didn't you weren't born so that you can flash around how you look or you don't look. It's that's irrelevant. We're all gonna get old if we're lucky and we die, and then we're gone, right? And focusing on the way we all behave and our personas, and it's all fake, so get real, and money is fake, and your status is fake, and your intelligence is also temporary. Your knowledge is temporary. It will be lost. You will forget it. You will lose it. All of that is going to go. Everything that you think you know and you have is going to be gone one day. All of it. So nothing is permanent. So someone might be intelligent and knowledgeable and wise and have a lot of money and be good looking, all those things, but it's only temporary. It's only for a short time period and it's gone. So, so what? But we run our lives on that, right? It's a sad fact. So now in the natural law, this is the basis, and I keep on trying to explain this, right? I went into depth about this last year, and I feel there's a lot of people that would listen to what I'm saying and say that I don't know what I'm talking about, because they don't know what they're thinking. A lot of people, and I don't know anything anyway, so there's truth in that. But the reality is that for someone to make a judgment on, do I know this? Do I know that? Well, speak up, like, have you got some, humanity in you? Have you got some life? Have you got some courage, right? A lot of people make the judgments, but they hide behind their veils of, whispers. So you're not a human, you're a subhuman to me then, right? Like, if you can't speak up, then get out of the way. So, natural law is a real thing, and it's based in the intention of God's will. And what we're talking about here is that there are no rules to follow, in the sense of there's a sheet of paper that you have to follow and say, this is how you live your life. No, that's not how it's operated. You were born, and the things that you experience are already integrated. The law's already integrated in that experience. Just as likely as when you're walking and there's a snake and you have instinctual watch out for the snake, don't step on the snake, or you get to a cliff, and when you go into the city and it's all concrete and roads and stuff, and all of a sudden it's just a very abstract environment where you can't really sense. Your senses are they are distorted, and so you need someone to tell you, hey, listen, just like the church loves to pretend that it is the ultimate authority. The Catholic Church pretends it is the ultimate authority, and you got to come and do your confessions, and they're going to guide you in your life, and it's just a total middleman. It's really satanic at the end of the day. To disconnect someone from their creator is one of the biggest sins, I would say. So when it comes down to it, you don't need a middleman. God doesn't need Moses to tell you what to do and what don't. You know that. Like, if look at the 10 Commandments, all those events, right? When you've done those things, how you feel when you do them or when you see it. If you have any child love in you, in yourself, you would know that those things are not good, right? You don't need to look at it on a tablet to tell you, oh, hey, yeah, don't murder your neighbor, right? Like, that is obvious. We don't want to murder people, right? Like, don't cheat with your wife, your brother's wife, kind of thing. We know that. Like, we know that's going to cause problems. All those things are, I would say, that's for the disconnected individuals that need to be told, don't do these things, don't steal. That's because you're disconnected from the source, man. Like, you don't need that information. If you're just walking through life, you have a reason of, like, what is the best of you being presented, and also what to expect from a child and what to expect from an elder. You don't need to tell people how to behave. They know, right? But they need to be given the ability to tap into that source, and that is their humanity. And if they lose that, and there's only one rule, that is the golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. That's as simple. I mean, you don't need any of the other rules. And in essence, that is the basis of natural law. When it comes down to nature in itself, it is a tough place, but that's part of the process. That's part of living and getting stronger and learning to become more competent and build courage and grow the hell up. So, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. It's not about the comforts. Life isn't about being happy. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's not about who you like. You're not going to like yourself out of these problems. The world is in a situation. It doesn't matter how much you like whatever you like. The world is not going to change because of that. Okay. This whole idea about Facebook likes and you like this, YouTube likes, this is a conditioning to make you think that everything's all right if you're just around enough likes, like you like enough things. So that's why I've never asked for likes. I don't want you to give me likes. I don't care about your likes, right? You got bigger problems to worry about than giving me a like, trust me. So you got bigger problems than following me, right? Like, so you need to get your stuff into order so you can get food, water, and shelter. Those are the things that you need to do. And in that process, you'll be able to actually discover, you'll be able to discover the connection, the Holy Spirit within that process, right? And if you are struggling to make that dive, to take that initiative to change, it's because you have a connection to your materialism. You're materialistic and it's weighing you down. It's no different than a ball and chain, and you're trying to swim and this ball and chain, it keeps on dropping you down. That's where you are. You're going to drown, okay? So cut that chain, cut it off, cut your leg off if it needs to be. It's not worth it. It's easier to deal with nature than to deal with all the politics, the taxes, and the crimes that are occurring on a grand level. Like, this is much easier to deal with. I'd rather deal with the snakes and the spiders and the mosquitoes than have to deal with that, right? So think about it, right? Like, make your life easier, because it's not intended. Jesus said that the work is hard, right? But his yoke is light. So in other words, it's not that life is easy when you become a Christian or you become a believer. It is not that life is going to become easier. It's that you're able to endure it, and that's because you have a lighter connection with the truth. In other words, you're uplifted with the truth of the reality, and that knowing this life that you're living right now is really just a blimp. It is nothing in comparison to what you're going to experience after you die. And that is the life that is really the one that will exist in its truth, right? And so this experience you're having right now is really there to give you the knowledge and the experience to see, who am I really? And once we die, we get to find out, was it something that did we fulfill? Did we actually complete that process? And do we really try our best to be the best we can? And did we follow the golden rule? So that you're going to find that, and this life doesn't mean anything really in that sense, in comparison to the life after. And I mean, maybe there's reincarnation, but I'm definitely not going to be reincarnated as the same person with the same experience in the same time period. Like that, I don't think is possible. So that is just kind of like the idea about Groundhog Day, right? Where you keep on waking up, but of course you could be reincarnated maybe to some kind of other life in a different time period and so on. So what? Okay, it's a different life. It's a different experience. It doesn't really have anything to do with the one I'm living now. The one I'm living now is the only one that matters. And ultimately, what I do is going to have an effect on my life afterwards. And that may mean I go get reincarnated, or it may mean that I stay in heaven or hell or wherever the hell I'm going, right? Who knows? So when it comes down to it, natural law is the practical way of getting connected to the divine. That's the irony. It's not about religion. It's not about trying to argue the spiritual, mythologies and trying to get a picture of the world. It's really about you going out and you are putting total faith in your humanity and life itself, nature. And by doing that, you're able to actually witness the magic of life. And you're able to see that you're able to overcome the impossible. That's what it boils down to. Everybody will say, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And that might be true to a certain point, but it is possible. It's possible. Things can change possibly. What is biting me now? So anyway, that's what I'm trying to say, is that if you're living in a stale synthetic environment, which is out of natural law, you're not going to have that connection, and you're going to start to believe in the dogma, the brainwashing of diminishing the possible, right? And you start to feel like it's all predetermined, like it doesn't matter anymore because you know the answers. Well, you don't, okay? And don't think they know the answers either. They don't know, like whoever's running the show, whoever thinks they are running the show, they might think they know what's going on, but they don't, okay? They don't, and that's the point, is that they don't know, we don't know, the levels, the plane is level. So we have an equal fighting chance. And your only real benefit is to get out of the synthetic environments, which to pull you out of natural law. And when you are able to get out of like the city environments and so on and get into nature, you're able to then see magic, and identify things. So I'm gonna switch over. I'm going on and on and on. But okay, this particular clip now is, if you listen to, this is now Mary Graham from Australia, and she's Indigenous, and she explains the interaction, the social structure, way better than I could ever explain it. And I was just blown away about the vision, the insight she gives us into the way of living in natural law that was done for thousands of years before we came up with our ideas. Or not us, right? It was a bunch of intellectuals that were sipping their coffee and tea in coffee stores, whatever, talking about life and theorizing about the meaning of life, and then they came up with concepts like persona ficta or ficta persona, which is your straw man, your identity in the government. And so then everything switched over from natural law to this other abstraction, right, of judging individuals based on their persona, not based on their humanity. And so we got into insurance, and we got into all these different systems that broke us away from reality. And we've been living synthetic lives, right? Like, it's not a real life. So, and life isn't meant to go on forever, guys. I'm sorry to say. I don't care if you think it's a good thing. It's not supposed to go on forever. Otherwise, you lose appreciation, right? So, to understand that this life is precious, the actions that take place in this life is precious, and your focus, your attention is really important. And it's being stolen by, these apps, just scrolling and scrolling. I mean, we're all guilty of it, but understand that when that's happening, your life is being stolen from you, okay? So now she goes into explain. I'm gonna just put that in this clip here, and so you can hear it from her. But this is the most clear example of what you can hear about natural law in effect of how it works. With that, thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. I wish you well. God bless. Okay, so we're going to take it the whole clip here, and this is the introduction to Mary, and I'm just going to sit back and be here, and I might pause and make some comments, but pretty much just going to sit and listen. So
Mary's map that she speaks to is right here. But what I'd like to do now is introduce Mary Graham. Mary is an esteemed thinker, writer, and acknowledged as someone who's been working for many decades on sharing deep information about the First Nations of this continent and their governance systems. Mary's an adjunct professor at the University of Queensland in political science, a prolific person in terms of publications and public speaking. If you Google her, you will find her. And she's a Kombu person from the Yugambeh language speaking peoples. And Mary can, of course, introduce herself, but as a sign of deep respect, I wanted to be the one to introduce Mary and hand over to you, Mary. So thank you so much for being with us today. Oh, and you're on mute, Mary.
Right. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Well, that map. Do you want to bring
I'll bring
the
it
map
back
again?
Yeah.
So Australia, as you can see, from our point of view. Sorry, first of all, I'll just introduce myself in the way Aboriginal people introduce themselves to each other, basically. So I live here in my father's people's country, and that's what we all together call our own particular place, country, region, if you like. As you can see, the whole country is full of the regions. So this is my father's people's country, Yugambeh language speaking Kombumerri mob. So our particular family clan group is Kombumerri right here on the Gold Coast, which is a big tourist place in Australia, old tourist place, lovely beaches and all that. And my mother's people are Waka Waka, who she came from a place 500 kilometres northwest of here. So that was her country. So looking at country and looking at region is like, another way of saying it is they're our ancestral lands, like those mother's ancestral lands, father's ancestral lands, and so on. So place is extremely important, extremely important. Everybody has a place where it's basically the meaning of life in a sense. And there's all kinds of various takeaways, or sorry, not takeaways, throwaway lines, I suppose, or terms that we use to describe this. For example, the law, the land is the source of the law. I don't know how you'd say that in Western law, what its source is, but Michelle later will probably explain that. So essentially, if I could just say it straight off and then expand, so go from the general to the specific. The best way to describe our system is it's a sacralized, ecological, collaborative, self-regulating stewardship system. So we're stewards in that sense. And in a sense, that's the meaning of life kind of idea of your relationship with land and with each other. So a relationalist kind of notion, there's two kind of notions essentially, and they're not either or, not excluded middle. Relationalism and survivalism. The first is the most basic meaning of what survivalism is. Basic as in large things that you want to escape from, like volcanoes and earthquakes and poisonous things. You have to be on the run and so on. So a very essential survivalism. But then it goes into relationalism and survivalism. And the first relationalist cab off the rank, so to speak, is that the land has invented. So it's a relationalism. The land itself creates everything, absolutely everything. Not just the land itself, the environment, everything that lives and moves and flies in it, and so on. But it gave birth to us too. So that goes on. So our relationship is it has invented us. It looks after us. It continues to look after us. And at some point or other in our long development, what somebody called a friend of mine called this is a long-term experiment in human automaking, basically, our old system. So it says looked after us. So we're obliged to look after it because we wouldn't be around. We'd be floating in space, wouldn't be anywhere if we were there, if it was different. So from there, a whole social and political ordering system comes. So the idea of looking after something outside of ourselves, and that's the land itself. So we share several things with everything else, all other life forms. We share physicality and spirituality, regardless of what the science says. The majority of the world's population believes in something to do with spirituality or the spirit. So physicality, spirituality, your feelings, sentience. Sentience is your feelings, and conscious, we communicate with each other. And then, of course, instinct. those 5 things we share with other beings. The one thing we don't share is, as far as I'm aware anyway, of what do you call it? Reflectivity. You know, I often use the term of little koala bears, which we call bawbies in our language. You can't imagine them sitting up in a tree discussing the meaning of life, of course. Only we do that, besides sitting in trees or whatever. So we have this system. It's a system that isn't religious. It's not religious. It's not philosophical. It's not ideological. It's not philosophical in the European sense, meaning you philosophize about a whole thing. There's a German word called Weltanschauung, and it's what a worldview essentially is. And this worldview, though, is from a particular region. Your country is a particular region, whatever its shape, like you see in that map. So we are who we are, and it's called something. The backing of it, or the naming of it, is a particular dreaming story. And there are several, but some are more important than others. So certain things are very important. And you could say this, and people do, they use a particular word for us here. So Danganbullen is it means the land of 5 rivers, but it's a practical physical region, but it contains essentially the meaning of life in this region, and the meaning of life with the land and with each other. So in that sense, there's no notion of a God. It's not a hierarchical kind of system. No God, no heaven or hell. That doesn't exist. And why it's not a religion is that you don't have to have faith in the dreaming to know what this dreaming is, because it's to do with reality around, actually, all around. And it's been developed over a very, very long period. It's a society of great age, and they're still finding out a whole lot about what Aboriginal people know in scientific terms too, a bit like your Native American native science idea. We've got the same thing here. And of course, a lot of old cultures have exactly the same kind of thing too. So the system that came out of here, the governance system, what you would even call a relationalist system, a relationalist sovereignty, if we getting more into modern politics and so on. But not an if I can say, an absolutist idea of sovereignty. So it's not about owning the land, and it is also not necessarily, like a lot of people have said, or we used to say, older people, that the land owns us. Do you know what I mean? But it is a relationalist idea. So you're obliged to look after every aspect of it, and of course that's the setting or the blueprint or whatever, however you like to call it. The guide to the kind of society you're going to have. You're supposed to look after people, looking after something outside of the self, outside. So that's why it's not religious. It doesn't rely on faith at all, none at all. What we're supposed to be doing is looking after the place. So our own old idea contains things like, and each particular thing I could go into much more length about explaining it. So, for example, the relationalist idea is that the notion of understanding human nature and all of its flaws and good things has been pretty well worked out for Aboriginal people. For example, conflict over a vast period of time. The idea of regionalism is exactly that, actually. We are all looking after bits and pieces of this whole big country, and yet there's no notion of a nationalist idea at all. It's all regionalism. You could call it a state, the earliest form of any kind of state, but of course we don't call it a state because the notion of a state or a region dominating everybody is not there. So it's not a hierarchy, in that sense. It's flat, that idea, It bears odd, how can you put it? Oh, gee, similarities, I suppose you could say, to a bit of to anarchy. It's been called anarchic because don't believe in government, don't believe in hierarchies, don't, there's no such thing as these things. But of course, it's anything but anarchic in the revolutionary way. It is, the law is, if you like, a meaning of, it's also a basic meaning of life kind of stuff. So two different kinds of laws, the laws that are LAW, the rules, and then LORE, there is the great creative narratives of every place and all the people in every place. Great creative narratives. So the law, the LAW is the rules, and the LORE is the story about how those rules came about, basically, and you adhere to them all the time. And this idea of looking after land is definitely part of the law in that sense. So you are either lawful or not. You have to do the right thing by the land and so on, and therefore by through and to each other. So that is, in a nutshell, is called autonomous regard, because all of us are autonomous beings. We're autonomous. We are our own boss. It's not the autonomy that says, I am a law unto myself. So you're not an individual on your own who can do what he or she likes to each other and to themselves and to the land and so on. So an autonomous regard is that you are in the most basic way equal to each other. We are all equal, and that's exactly how, according to the law, you're supposed to treat people. So it's not just for people who like each other. It's for people who don't like each other. This system, autonomous regard. So you may not like them, your neighbour, and so on and so on. But or to put it another way, you don't literally have to love your neighbour, but don't go around invading him and trying to take over his land. And this brings us to the other notion about trying to understand conflict, or understanding conflict. Conflict will always be with us in our idea, and of course everybody understands that across the world in different cultures. You work out ways of how do you try to obtain a measure, pretty big measure, hopefully, of stability. So you don't look at security first, security against the neighbour or the others, but you look at relationalism and stability. So in order to get security, you pay as much attention and in your life and in your system to relationalism, to how to treat one another, and so on and so on. So that idea of conflict, humans being as complex and ornery as they are, they'll fight about all kinds of stuff, and the idea, the old Aboriginal idea, is you can fight on top of the land, but not over land. So there's no notion. It's a completely incomprehensible idea of invasion. It's not even in the language. The word for invasion is not in the language. But there's every different kind of conflict you can think of. Kill, murder, attack, duels, feuds. There's words for those, but no word for the classic invasion: invade, conquer, and subjugate. So that's also why there is no such thing as wars of conquest. Nothing like that at all. It's just simply, it would be, if there was a notion of it, which we only discovered came in as a new thing from colonization, of course. But nobody could understand it at first, because it's such an ancient system of this regionalism that you can't understand how someone can come in and take over somebody else's land. It's absurd. It's an absurd idea, from our point of view. Do we all want stability or not? And so on. So we're obliged to, in this system here, everything starts with the land itself and the land of your particular place. So it's highly likely they're thinking now, because I do work with mainly in the political science area, political science and international relations. But also I work with a group at UQ, University of Queensland philosophy group too. So the idea is to work out essentially the meaning of our relationship with land itself, and you're heading towards, in this long development, we head towards the idea of, in a sense, what kind of a human being, what kind of a life form are we? Are we going to be? Are we? Were we? Are we? And so on. So the idea of looking after something outside of ourselves should lead us towards the idea of seeing a conscience or ethics, if you like. There's a word, proper, that we often use, Aboriginal people, of all the, we all have different popular English words that we use. The idea of proper, it's a kind of a mixture of a righteousness and the idea of, I can't explain it properly. It's a bit like Weltanschauung, which Germans also can't explain properly because it's a deep concept, a very deep concept, So you're learning not so much how to be a good person, but to understand that being fully human means having a measure of this conscience, which leads to ethics, which leads to ethics being a doing thing. You can have ethics, all the ethics you want in books on shelves and written about and spoken about, but in the end, ethics is a doing thing. So you have to have a measure of a conscience below that in order to have ethics, in order to develop a system of ethics, and so on and so on. And for us, now people don't talk like that. They'll talk about, they don't use terms to do with philosophy. They'll use these terms of proper. You have to do things in a proper way. And it's at all levels, all degrees. When you're very young, as you know, probably, your parents are telling you how to do something properly. If you can't do it properly, well, don't do it at all, or something, some scolding kind of thing. And then as you're growing up, you're realizing that it means much more than that. So looking after, like the tiny toddler is told to look after this puppy now, and you've been given as a present. You've got to look after it and feed it and give it water and so. Well, just imagine a system like that goes on right to adulthood, all your life and through generations. You're being told this. You not only you cease being told because now you do it actually, and so on. So again, it's not the idea of trying to be good and be rewarded in heaven, because there isn't any heaven. There's nothing like that. You're not doing it to be perfect. So proper doesn't mean perfectionism, nothing like that. And all I could go on forever about that kind of the whole old system. And of course, you can imagine after the last 200 years of colonialism, a lot of it has been turned on its head and destroyed. And, but there is still a very close abiding with this kind of old ideas, So I'm not quite sure how I'm going for time.
I think a couple more minutes. Is that right, Bill?
A couple more minutes? Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
but obviously we'll have a lot
Okay.
of time for further discussion too, Mary.
Yeah, please ask more questions, because it's an enormous thing to try to get around. Because as you're aware, nothing's written down. There's paintings, there's in stone walls, and so on and so on. But of course, there's storytelling and your actions themselves, of course. But there's I've had a go at over the many years of looking at other people's culture, reading and trying to understand. And one thing I learned a great deal from all of this, including Western philosophy too. But I was very taken with all the whole realm of Asian thinking and philosophizing. And I came across this very interesting little term, that as Chinese, space is freedom and place is security. I thought, oh, that's interesting, because that fits straight in, especially place with the region. We haven't got super observational skills that we can see, 100 miles or 1,000 miles away, but we can see next door. Do you know what I mean? We can see closer in. And so as far as that observation and connection goes, relationalist connection, you work on that. You work on that for forever and ever. You have all these rules, ways of doing these. How to manage conflict is a big one. How to think of very clever, very thoughtful ways of managing conflict, not solving it, in a sense. Sounds a bit strange. So you don't go for solutions. You go for management. Manage those things that are flaws in human beings. That's the most that you can hope for, you can expect. So no hierarchy. It's a flat system. A balanced governance. Settlement of conflicts, getting better and better at it over tens of thousands of years we're talking about. And the whole thing is disrupted by people with a very different way of running a country. So what we're trying to do always is not just like, not all of us are relying or hoping for a treaty or anything like that. We thought it's a disappointment, the only English-speaking country in the world, common law country in the world that doesn't have a treaty. But Western politics can't be totally relied on, because next door neighbour, New Zealand, their old treaty was just recently chucked out by a new party coming in and so on. So life is very uncertain. And of course, the strange thing is that that's our logic too. Our logic is not Aristotelian. It's not Aristotelian. We're probably closer to Chinese logic than anything else. But ours is about all perspectives are valid and reasonable. And that needs to be explained further too, because it sounds great, but actually it's very oblique kind of thing. The logic. All perspectives are valid and reasonable, but not necessarily right. And that's where the problem comes in. If somebody of a particular kind of perspective of life tries to force their way of thinking on you, well, bad news. It's bad news. So we don't have that kind of logic. Anyway, I'll leave it there.
Okay, well, sorry, I got background noise here. So this is critical in understanding where we are in history in terms of what we've lost in the pursuit of happiness, right? In the pursuit of, in the name of God, and this, we are supposed to go out and conquer, and we're the leaders, and we're supposed to be in control. This is what is being taught. That's what was told to great grandparents of mine in South Africa by the church, saying that you're white, you were told to, you were guided here by God to come to this land to control the black people. That's exactly what was promoted in the churches of South Africa. Mary explains very purely the simplicity of this natural experience of not trying to find solutions, it's really a way of working together in a constant motion with the land. It's simple. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm going to leave you over to, if you're interested to learn more about yourself, to learn about your options and how you can empower yourself, please take a look at Richard Grove's course. I really employ it. Thank you very much. All the best.
Autonomy is unlike any other educational offering on the planet. It's an incubator for growth, an accelerator for creating relationships, creating and establishing long-term relationships. It's an elevator of understanding and a generator for creating plans, expediting and solving life's problems and challenges, and overcoming the obstacles blocking your path. and doing so on a consistent basis with a calm, cool, collected atmosphere. It all happens here. And with nearly 1,000 graduates, I know what I teach works. I know you have the ability to learn it. I know it can work for you as well or better than it has for me. When I acquired these skills for myself, it was a struggle because I had never invested that much in my own self-education. However, I would never have earned a 200-fold return on my investment in the first 5 years of applying these skills in the marketplace. That was a game changer for me. This is truly $1 million education, and everything I teach is what I've used for my own growth and success over the past 3 decades. Sharing the opportunity to do so is likewise a game changer for those who are willing to know and willing to learn and show up for themselves in the game of life. And with all that being said, I invite you to engage in finding out for yourself in the Autonomy Primer course. I'll see you on the other side.